I don't want people to know that I was watching instead of studying. Este Yaku, papi. Este Yaku. Shaking my head. He was trying to time himself out. Jesus. I'm catching it. How long can we stay in a game in a 100% winning spot without walking across the map and finishing it? Este shoe. Calm down, papi. Calm down. So 1G kids these days. True. But here we go, we're getting into our next game, and spawning in the bottom left-hand corner of Alkione, we have our Polish Protoss player, the red Protoss representing Storm Gaming. It is Gerald. And spawning in the top right-hand corner, we have the blue Protoss player, also representing Storm Gaming as they are teammates. It is MindelVK. And this is going to be a much more competitive match between these two players. I remember MindelVK did impress me last week as well. Let me just double check. When it comes to the results of Mindel, did he take a game off of Nightmare? What was that result? MindelVK. I remember he had a pretty good result as of late. But regardless, see how he does compared to Gerald. Gerald coming in as one of the big players to make it at least to the semis, maybe even the grand finals. Can he make it that farther? Can he go all the way? Who knocked Geralt out last week? Let me just double check that. As we're getting into our 2-gate openers, 2-gate opener here by Mindel, 2-gate opener out of Geralt as well. Everything is by the book. And it was Nickrak, right? Yes, okay, so last week, Nickrak took down Geralt. Nickrak did eliminate Geralt 2-1. And then Nickrak got taken out by Cristiano 2-1 as well. Like, there were a lot of ace matches last week. Even Nightmare bled to Art, the Polish Protoss. Even did drop a map there as well. So, yeah, there's been a lot of back and forth, at least in this tournament series, which I do appreciate. A lot of back and forth. We'll see if that trend does continue. For now, it's going to be a Stalker Sentry-based opener out of MindelVK. Geralt's going for Double Adept. So it's going to be a much more aggressive opener here out of Geralt. With these adepts, he can move out across the map, and we could be seeing a 3rd and 4th adept thereafter, even a 5th and 6th adept as well. Meanwhile, with a sentry-based opener, it's more defensive. We're more defensive, we're stuck at home. We're going to be going for a Hallucination Scout to get eyes across the map. A much more defensive opener here by MindelVK, as we're going for a Stargate as well. We're going Adept into Oracle. And we spoke about it. We have 2 adepts, we have a 3rd and 4th adept on the way as well. A bit of a supply block here is going to slow down Gerald, so a little bit inefficient, a little bit brutal with that supply block. The Pylon is in production, Oracle soon thereafter as well. Gerald being hyper aggressive here against MindelVK. Something that I'm not always expecting here out of Gerald. That's something he does too often. There's the expansion. MindelVK with a slightly faster base here instead. Adepts move out across the map. We do catch them though. Very nicely done. MindelVK, he was lying in wait here at the Zolnaga. Does get 1 adept. And he almost gets another. Very nicely done. Proxy Pilot being set up across the map as well to harass to warp in. Geralt will get across the map. We'll get eyes on the expansion at least, but won't get eyes on much else. Does confirm it's not a 1-base all-in. You know, MindelVK does apply some pressure to this base. And what do we have to work with here? We canceled the Adepts, actually. Okay. We are still going for the Oracle, but Geralt, he canceled the Adepts, going into Stalkers. Ooh, bleeding out a lot. Geralt's in a bit of trouble. We're reinforcing, by the way. MindelVK is doubling down, going for another warp in of Stalkers, applying the pressure. Can he force a cancel? Collapsing on the arm. He does have the higher Stalker count. Comes in with the Oracle. Ooh. Will bleed out another sentry. But does get the Oracle. That's a big win. And now Geralt, he's in a lot of trouble. Things are snowballing out of control. Geralt, he's in a lot of trouble right now. He's down in Stalkers. And Mindel, he's going for another warp in. More reinforcements. And in a game here where we have equal production, how do we ever catch back up? Geralt, he can't. He can't, not anymore. Yeah, there's just an overwhelming amount of Stalkers here. GG gets called, and MindelVK takes game number 1. GG. Oh my god. And a lot of that, honestly, was because of the supply block. The supply block delayed the 3rd and 4th units, and Gerald was indecisive. Remember, Gerald, he cancelled his units. He cancelled that Adept even though it was halfway done, which delayed his overall production, delayed his overall army, and he just didn't have enough. Like, that's in a mirror matchup, that's what it comes down to. When you have an equal production to your opponent, if you get supply block, if you get delayed, if you don't make units, and if your opponent does, how do you catch up? How do you catch up in that Stalker count, in that army count? You can't. GG. GG, well played. Just like that, Mindel takes game number 1. And will we have our first upset of the night? Is this the beginning of the end for Gerald? One more loss and he's out of the tournament, and I was not expecting to say those words here. Again, Gerald, he does need to tighten up his play coming into game 2. No more mistakes, no small mistakes like that. Not against MindelVK, even though Gerald is more of a household name. Even though Gerald, he's just more known amongst the people. He's a little bit more accomplished as a player. MindelVK is not one to be taken lightly. As we see here and now, and spawning in the top left-hand corner, we have our Polish Protoss player, the red Protoss representing Storm Gaming. Down in this series, he needs to fight back here and now. It's a best of 3, by the way. It is Gerald. And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the blue Protoss player representing Storm Gaming as well. They are teammates, and he is leading the series 1-0. It is MindelVK. Go. Catching up in the chat. Yeah. Mindel did lose to Eva last week. But there was a result that caught my eye. What result was I thinking of? You know what? I'm going to look it up. I'm going to look it up here. Azura matches. Sorry, not Azura. MindelVK matches. But yeah, there was a result that had impressed me recently. Maybe it was MindelVK and Nickrak taking down Miyamaki and Hormono last night. That did happen. True. There we go. It was Sparkling Tuna Cup 45, not 46. So 2 weeks ago, MindelVK, he 2-0'd Shameless and he brought Gerald to the ace match. That's what I was thinking of. Okay. So yeah, to reiterate or to pivot back to what I was saying earlier about MindelVK having some impressive results as of late. It wasn't last week, as Eba mentioned in the chat. Last week, Eba did 2-0 MindelVK in the first round, but 2 weeks ago, in Sparkling Tuna Cup 45, MindelVK 2-0'd Shameless, which I would say is impressive. I would rate Shameless a little bit higher nowadays, and MindelVK also forced Gerald into the ace match. Did take a map off of Gerald there as well. So at least in the PvP, oh, and he also 2-0'd Spats. Okay, also 2-0'd Spats. That was last month though. That was a little bit longer ago. That was a couple of weeks ago. But also did 2-0 Spats. So again, I mean, we all know how volatile the PvP matchup can be. True. I do understand that as the probe goes down. But regardless, Mindel, he has it in him to cause upsets. We're taking a game. Can we take another? Behind this, expansion has been taken. We're taking our natural base. Meanwhile, we're getting into our Stalker Sentry. Meanwhile, across the map, likewise, a Sentry-based opener out of Gerald. Something a little bit safer overall. Getting into a second Sentry behind this for some hallucinated scouts. Interesting, Gerald, he does skip his second unit, actually. So he goes Sentry into Sentry instead of any kind of Stalker variation. It does mean that Gerald, he will have a little bit less to work with. Is lacking a Stalker. Catching up with the chat. Oh, 1G. True. It's all Blizzard's fault. I think Gerald was just a little bit upset about that last game, which is understandable. Or maybe he did forget the second G. Possibly. No, I want to believe Carolyn. I want to believe. Behind this, we have our tech. It's going to be Blink for Gerald. Likewise, Blink here from MindelVK as well. Blink for both players. We have our expansions on the way. And unlike the previous game, things are calming down. We're kind of easing our way here into the 2-base setup in game number 2. No major signs of aggression. We have our first deviation, which is Gerald going for a Forge. So Forge for upgrades, or I imagine +1. We'll have quite an upgrade timing available in the mid-game. It's going to be doubling down on Blink Stalkers. Meanwhile, MindelVK has avoided any upgrades of the sort. There's something to bear in mind is that Gerald, the quality of his army is soon to get better and better. Hallucination Scout does confirm the Forge, does get eyes on the would-be +1. Third base is on the way. We are primed for a 2-base all-in, by the way. We throw down a Forge of our own. I was going to say, if we throw down like 2 more gateways, we ignore the third, we just go for extra warp bins, and we just push, Gerald would be in a lot of trouble. Because of how heavily he's investing into upgrades, into not his production, but into his economy, there's potential. But Mindel's just going for his own third. Now, what's a little bit worrisome here is that Mindel, his Forge is late compared to his opponents. His third base is later than his opponents as well. It does feel like Mindel, he's reacting to Gerald's, but because he's reacting in such a way, he's one step behind. Does seem to be a step behind here, so we'll see how we can make up for that. Looking at the overall army sizes, MindelVK does have a supply lead. He's up 2 Stalkers. So he does have a slight Stalker lead here that he can try to leverage. The pressure, I'm sure, is on Mindel to push out to try to threaten the third, but we already have a shield battery finishing up. We have force fields available as well. It's not going to be easy. So here we go. Hallucination is moving out. They do pass by each other. So Mindel is going to be checking, confirming the third base, as well as the saturation. Likewise, so is Gerald. Army is moving out on the right-hand side. MindelVK's army hasn't spotted. And Gerald does confirm his location. He knows he's out of position. He knows it's here on the left-hand side. And Gerald, he's going for the main. He's going for the kill. Mindel pulls back. Does pull back. We dive into the main base. We do depower the gateways. Ooh, and that is every gateway depowered. The gateway explosion still on the way. Boys, they have to be pulled away. Pretty good damage here by Gerald, and he recalls. 1 Stalker for 2 pylons and delayed warp bins, and we force back the entire army. Worth it. Very well worth it here for Gerald. And behind this, Gerald, he's up in workers. Again, because of the faster third base, he has the better economy. He's working on +2 as we speak. So he has the upgrade lead. And he's also working and building up his own immortal count. Both players are. Now, what I will say, even though I want to say that Gerald has an edge over his opponent, it's not the biggest of edges, right? Like, it's not a massive lead. It's just these slight leads here and there that can snowball out of control and can get out of hand. But Mindel isn't out of this yet. He himself can try to outposition his opponent. Try to catch Gerald off guard. Gerald's going for a 4th base. Mindel going for another gateway explosion. 4 more gates on the way. No +2, by the way. That is interesting to me. There is no +2. Another gateway gets thrown down. Mindel, it looks like he's committing. Yeah, he's cutting workers at 51. No more probes, no more 4th base. Mindel is going for a 3-base all-in. Prism is moving out to reinforce. Stalkers do miss it. Here come those reinforcements. Charge is done, by the way, for MindelVK. A very strong timing from him. Does have a comparable army. Shield batteries done. Cannons are done as well. Good force fields. Yeah, we just zoned so much supply away. And the Zealots, they cleaned up. Really good engagement here by Gerald. Just slicing up the army. Base is done. We have an overcharge. If we ever need it. And we may not even. Another good force field. Just making it so awkward to push in. And Mindel, he's running out of steam. We force field the Immortal. The Immortal goes down. There's that overcharge. Second Immortal has arrived, and Gerald, he's just completely shutting this down. Despite the fact that Mindel is all in, he's still just struggling to break through. Yeah, Gerald, he's up in army supply. Immortals are being targeted down. We do get 1. We get the Prism. The Prism goes down. We deny the warp in. And Gerald holds. He has the upgrade lead. He has +2. Shuts down the Stalkers. He has charge lots. Defender's advantage. Gerald, he's up heavily here in the worker count in the economy. And GG gets called. Gerald ties up the series 1-1. GG. GG, well played. We are tied up 1-1. We are going all the way to the ace match. Let's go, buddy. Let us go. We're going to game number 3. Again, as I mentioned before, it did feel like Mindel was one step behind. Because he was behind, I'm all aboard going for a 3-base all-in the way that he did. But the execution of the defense was impressive by Gerald. The force fields were so on point, just slicing up the army, attacking and engaging with only a portion at a time. MindelVK was picked apart. He was picked apart there, and yeah, just really impressive performance by Gerald in game number 2. And now, we're going to the ace match. We're going all the way to game number 3. I'm just catching up with the chat. Homeowner usually gets 0 Gs from Gerald. Yeah, but Homeowner's an animal. Homeowner is an animal. Este Homeowner. But he's our animal. Let's go. And here we go, we're getting into the ace match, and spawning in the top right hand corner of Dynasty, we have our red Protoss player representing Storm Gaming, tying up the series 1-1, forcing that ace match. It is Gerald. And spawning in the bottom left hand corner, we have his opponent. Sorry, just messaging Fiant. But spawning in the bottom left-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the blue Protoss player, also representing Storm Gaming as they are teammates. It is MindelVK. I'm catching up in the chat. Fiant. Good morning, Bobby. Good morning. I mentioned before that we are lacking in Zerg players in our tournament. We have an abundance of Protoss and a handful of Terran. When it comes to Zerg, we have, again, we mentioned before, we have Eon, we have Hatsu, and we have Iba here. And, oh boy. Oh my, Eon gets a 2-0? Oh my god, that's huge. I need to message him. That's massive. We'll catch up with the bracket after this. We will eventually catch up with the bracket, but for now, we're focusing on our PvP. We don't want to get too distracted as our probes are moving out. It's going to be a 2-gate opener out of Gerald, a 2-gate opener out of MindelVK as well. So far, mirrored builds, but we are loading into Dynasty, and the biggest feature of Dynasty, of course, is the gold base. Now, in a PvP, we have seen very few players attempt to expand here. Even though the gold is lucrative in certain matchups, it's very tempting, specifically in a PvP because of your access to adepts and stalkers. You can't take this. You can't take it as a natural, at least. You can maybe take it as a 4th, maybe as a 3rd base, but you need map control. You need a map presence here to take it. Otherwise, you're just going to be abused by your opponent, and you won't be able to get this base mining. There have been some Protoss players that have attempted to take this as a natural, this gold as a natural, and we've seen them fail. We have seen them fail, and that's why you can see both MindelVK and Gerald moving towards their standard natural base location. So this is a bit of a PSA out there. Depending on the matchup, don't be too tempted. Stray away from the gold base because it can be your downfall. It can be so difficult to actually make use of. What I'm referring to specifically, we can see a lot of Protoss and Terran players freely take this base against Zerg. Reason why is because Ling Bane can't really do anything here. You need to tech up quickly into roaches if you want to abuse this position. And that's a pretty big commitment, and it's hard to really get roaches going too early on. So again, Zerg players, Terran and Protoss, can expand here as freely as they please. Against each other, though, that's a different story. Hallucinations are moving out. Expansions are being taken. Was a sentry-based opener once again from Gerald. Likewise, a sentry-based opener out of MindelVK. Is focusing on Stalker production behind this. It was just Stalker Sentry. Hallucination confirms the tech. Confirms. Oh my god! Okay. I freaked out for a moment. I was like, what's going on? Blink is on the way, as it should be. Blink from both players. Hallucinations were trying to shut them down. I don't know if you saw, for a moment there, we had Glaives in production. That was wild. I was like, oh my, he's going for an all-in. Glaive Adepts are not unheard of in PvP, but usually if you go for Glaive Adepts, it's for an all-in. It's to just double down and just commit. Just because Glaive Adepts don't scale well into the mid-game, it's a little bit more short-sighted. But alas, we're now focusing on Blink. Meanwhile, MindelVK going for a proxy gateway. Interesting. How many gateways do we have? 2 and 2, so 4 gates set up from both players. Bearing in mind as well that Gerald usually goes for a third base before this gateway explosion. Because these gateways have been thrown down, Gerald, he has an even production with MindelVK. So even if MindelVK moves out with this reinforcement point, Gerald has enough to shut him down, and he gets eyes on this. He scouts, he confirms. Gerald, he does confirm. Behind this, we have a shield battery, we have an overcharge, second pylon on the way. I imagine maybe even another shield battery. Gerald, he's amassing an army. He's getting ready for the assault. He knows it's coming. But knowing is half the battle. Looking at the unit tab here, we have 10 Stalkers from MindelVK. We have 7 from Gerald. We dive in. We go for the dive. We get 1 Stalker. Overcharge is going to be popped. Oh, and we are surviving. Good blinks here to Gerald. He's holding. He tanks so many shots there, avoids so many as well. And Gerald forces back the army. We'll bleed out a sentry or 2, but that's really all he's losing. And MindelVK is not gonna be able to break this. He's not breaking this position. And Gerald takes a third. Mindel should be as well. He's trying to double down, going for another warp in. Mindel catching out some Stalkers. Good pickups. 1 Stalker, 2 Stalkers go down. Good target firing. Another Stalker as well. And as Gerald is expanding, is he caught with his pants down? Not quite. Mindel not able to break through, just barely. Going for another warp in. Again, Mindel, he's all in. Like, there's no more work. He hasn't saturated his natural. There is no expanding. There is no taking a third base. It's all or nothing here. The longer this goes on, the better it is for Gerald. Leads out more Stalkers. Again, we're so close to breaking through. We have the overcharge. Good blinks out of Gerald. We dive on top of the army. We're down to 3 Stalkers. Sorry, down to 4. Now up to 6. And Gerald, he's holding on. There's no breaking this, not anymore. And again, Mindel has nothing back at home to work with. Mindel, he's trying to commit. He has to. Goes for another big warp in. That's 11 Stalkers. Does Mindel have enough? The Immortal's on the way. That's the problem right now. The Immortal is on the way. Mindel, we gotta keep going. You gotta keep pushing, Pop. Gets another Stalker. Gets a couple of probes. We're just buying time, though. Gerald, he's just buying time for the Immortal. The Immortal has arrived. And the Immortal is going to town on this army. We're just chunking away at these Stalkers. We do try to focus it down. We get the Immortal. But it costs us so much. It costs us too much. As Mindel, he loses his Stalker lead. And again, time is on Gerald's side. GG gets called. He defends. He holds. He survives the all-in. And Gerald will take a 2-1 win here and advance on to the semi-finals. GG. GG, well played. Congratulations here to Gerald for surviving the all-in. Mindel, unfortunately, just unable to make the first dive worth it. If you remember, the first dive for Mindel was arguably the most important dive, and because of the overcharge, because of the counter blinks, Gerald, I think he soaked like 3 or 4 volleys. 3 or 4 volleys of Stalkers. They did nothing, essentially, because of his blink, because of the overcharge, and yeah, Mindel, he was stopped before he could really get going. GG. GG, well played. Congratulations here. Congratulations to Gerald as he does advance on. And now we can take a moment here to have a look at the brackets. Exclamation mark B. Exclamation mark B in the chat if you guys want to have a look at the bracket yourselves. Ooh, let us switch our scenes over